Humanity's first official encounter with the galactic community was nothing short of a spectacle. The Intergalactic Summit was held on the ancient world of Vyrocus, a neutral planet where the galaxy's most powerful empires, such as the Telar Dominion, gathered in what seemed to be an endless parade of wealth, advanced technologies, and haughty arrogance. The air buzzed with the noise of various species chattering in countless languages, their interactions steeped in centuries of power dynamics and diplomacy. It was here that Earth, newly emerged from the confines of its home solar system, was to present itself as part of the galactic fold. Captain Adrienne Voss, commander of the Terran Defense Fleet, sat at the far end of a long, circular conference table. Her eyes were sharp, her fingers laced together in front of her. She had no doubt about the significance of this moment, Earth's first impression in the eyes of the galaxy. A victory in diplomacy could secure humanity's place in the stars. But as the opening ceremony continued, the weight of the situation was tempered by a creeping unease. The Telar Dominion, the most ancient and powerful of the galactic empires, held the most sway in the room. Tall, with translucent skin that shimmered in the light, the Telar were known for their mind-bending technology, their centuries-old civilization, and their nearly omnipotent grip on galactic affairs. They spoke of other species in patronizing tones, often dismissing them as little more than tools for their empire's use. As the summit began, a prominent Telar admiral, Sheldran, took the stage. His deep, resonating voice echoed across the hall, amplified by the universal translator systems. His speech was a display of galactic history, one in which the Telar had played the role of benevolent conquerors, uniting the stars under their rule for the greater good. He spoke of the inevitable peace that would come when all civilizations were brought into the fold, including Earth, of course. Humanity, Sheldran said, his pale, almond-shaped eyes sweeping across the room, has demonstrated a remarkable ability to send machines into the void. But we are here to remind you that the galaxy is no place for children. You must be guided, educated, and tempered by time. The cosmos is vast and unforgiving. You have barely begun to crawl. Voss, sitting at the human delegation's table, clenched her fists. There were whispers around the room, subtle but biting, about Earth's technology, about how humanity had only recently unlocked the secret of faster-than-light travel. How laughable, how quaint. In the audience, the other species, diplomats and delegates from dozens of planets, shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other. The veiled disdain in Sheldran's tone wasn't lost on them. Voss didn't flinch, though. She had been trained for this moment, prepared for the arrogance and the condescension. It wasn't the first time humanity had been underestimated, and yet there was something more insidious about Sheldran's words. His dismissal of Earth's capabilities was a challenge. He spoke of Earth as though it were a passing curiosity, something that would burn out like a fleeting star. But there was a fire in Voss's chest, a fire that refused to go out. Perhaps, she muttered quietly, as the Admiral concluded his speech, we'll show them that fire isn't easily snuffed out. The room erupted into applause, but Voss's mind was elsewhere. The Dominion's judgment was one of superiority. And for now, humanity was nothing but a curiosity. But her gut told her this would be a mistake. She'd make them regret it. Weeks passed in a haze of official meetings, diplomatic pleasantries, and backroom negotiations. The galaxy's eyes were on Earth, waiting to see what this newly awakened species would do next. Would they fall into line, content with their place at the galactic table, or would they challenge the established order? The Telar had already made their judgment, and as Voss sat in the observation lounge of the Pride of Earth, a massive Terran warship, she couldn't shake the feeling that their mockery was more than just condescension. It was a statement. They didn't view humanity as a threat. They saw them as a nuisance. But Voss wasn't convinced. The Dominion's arrogance was bound to have consequences. She'd seen it before. When empires grow too comfortable in their power, they fail to see the cracks beneath the surface. And Earth, humanity wasn't content to sit at the table and nod along. There was something far greater at stake. Then came the news that would change everything. An encrypted message from the Terran colony on Epsilon Theta arrived, coded in a frantic, almost desperate tone. Under attack. Unknown assailants. They've already breached the perimeter. Where? The transmission was cut off. Captain Voss felt a chill crawl up her spine. Epsilon Theta was a thriving agricultural colony located in the far reaches of the Sagittarius Fringe, a region largely ignored by the larger galactic powers. It was supposed to be a safe haven, small, peaceful, and out of the spotlight. The fact that something could happen there, with no warning, no reason, was unsettling. An immediate investigation was launched, but the Terran High Command's initial assumption was that it was an isolated pirate raid. Space was vast, after all, and rogue factions often preyed on outlying colonies. But as the days passed, reports began to trickle in, and the picture that emerged was far darker than anyone had expected. The attackers, though highly organized, didn't use conventional methods. There were no signs of raiders trying to plunder or enslave. Instead, they seemed intent on something more specific: destruction. The colony's communications had been jammed before the attack even began, a precise tactic only a few highly advanced factions were known to employ. But what struck Voss most was the weapon signatures reported by Terran satellites. They didn't match any known pirate tech. The truth dawned on her in a horrifying instant. This wasn't just a raid. This was deliberate. This was calculated. And it had the unmistakable fingerprints of the Tular Dominion all over it. She wasted no time. The message was clear. Earth had been targeted. Whether it was a test, a warning, or a simple show of force, it didn't matter. What mattered was the Dominion's intent. They were making their move. Voss immediately gathered her most trusted officers in the command center of the Pride of Earth. They all knew the risks. If the Tular were responsible, it was no longer just a diplomatic insult. It was an act of war. "Get me all intel on Tular military activity in this region," Voss ordered. "We need to know if this was an isolated incident, or if they're preparing for something bigger." Her second-in-command, Commander Caleb Marks, stepped forward. "Ma'am, the Dominion will deny involvement. They'll claim it's a rogue faction, or some other excuse. But if it is them, we need to act fast. They won't give us a second chance." Voss nodded grimly. "We can't wait for the politicians to decide. The time for negotiation is over. If the Dominion wants war, we'll give them a war they never saw coming." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling on each officer like a heavy stone. The decision was made. Operation Quiet Flame would begin immediately. The Terran fleet would go dark, moving swiftly and quietly in the shadows, gathering intelligence and positioning itself for an all-out assault, should it come to that. Earth was no longer merely reacting to a diplomatic slight. It was preparing to take control of its own fate. And if the Tular had underestimated humanity before, they would soon learn that Earth's response would be unlike anything they had ever faced. The galaxy might think Earth was a child, but it was about to learn that children grow up fast when they're forced to. The Pride of Earth slipped through the void, its sleek black hull blending seamlessly with the fabric of space. In the deep recesses of the ship, beneath layers of reinforced bulkheads and shields, Captain Voss sat alone in the command chair, her mind racing. Operation Quiet Flame had begun, and Earth's first move had been made in the shadows, under the radar of galactic watchfulness. Their fleet was small, but their stealth capabilities, developed in the wake of the Dominion's mockery, were cutting edge. No one, not even the Tular, would know they were coming until it was too late. Voss had gathered a specialized crew for this mission. Engineers, hackers, soldiers, and analysts. Each one handpicked for their ability to think outside the box. There would be no conventional warfare here. They weren't just going to engage the Tular in a battle they expected. They were going to cripple them before they even knew what hit them. The ship's objective was clear: infiltrate a Tular shipyard located on the outskirts of their territory and gather intelligence. The Tular were building something. A weapon or a fleet, perhaps, but it was clear that Earth needed to know what it was. For all their military might, the T-LAR couldn't afford to overlook humanity again. "We've made it, Captain," said Lieutenant Maris, the pride of Earth's lead engineer, breaking Voss's concentration. She stood by the navigation console, her eyes fixed on the blinking red dot on the holographic display, signifying the T-LAR shipyard. It was a small, heavily fortified installation, hidden within an asteroid field, designed to keep outsiders away. But the T-LAR hadn't anticipated Terran ingenuity. Voss stood and walked over to the console. "How soon until we're in range to deploy the drones?" she asked, her voice steady. 5 minutes, Maris replied. "The drones are ready. We've bypassed their long-range sensors, but their defenses will still be active. We'll need to disable their comms before we can move in." Voss's eyes flicked over the data, mentally mapping out the timing. They were taking a calculated risk. If they failed, it would be a major loss, both in terms of their position and their morale. But if they succeeded— "All right," Voss said, her tone resolute. "Launch the drones, and get our stealth cloaks ready. We're going in." The drones slipped out of the pride of Earth's bay like shadowy phantoms, their quiet engines masked by the asteroid field. Each drone was equipped with cutting-edge electronic warfare capabilities, designed to infiltrate, disrupt, and disable enemy systems. They moved swiftly, undetected by the T-LAR's sensors, and within moments they had reached the shipyard's primary communication array. Then, the world exploded into chaos. The drones sent out a wave of electromagnetic pulses, shutting down the shipyard's comm systems. The T-LAR didn't know it yet, but their greatest advantage, their ability to communicate over vast distances, had been severed. Inside the command center of the Pride of Earth, Voss's eyes flashed with a spark of triumph. "Now," she muttered under her breath. As the drones moved to their secondary objective, planting a virus into the T-LAR's data cores, the Pride of Earth's stealth cloak flickered into place, rendering the ship nearly invisible to the naked eye. Voss had anticipated the T-LAR would soon realize something was wrong. But by the time they scrambled their forces, it would be too late. The drones completed their task, and the data began to stream in. Voss watched the holographic display as a wealth of intelligence flooded her systems. There it was. The T-LAR were building something massive, something designed to tear through entire fleets. A new class of warship, sleek, powerful, and equipped with a weapon unlike anything Earth had seen before. This was no mere attack on a colony. This was a warning. The T-LAR Dominion was preparing for a full-scale offensive, and Earth was squarely in their sights. Voss clenched her fists. The stakes had just escalated beyond anything she'd imagined. The war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking the fight to the heart of the T-LAR's empire. She turned to her crew, the tension in the air palpable. "Prepare for extraction. We have what we need. Let's get out of here." But as the crew set to work, a soft beeping interrupted the calm. A warning flashed on Voss's screen. Multiple T-LAR ships inbound. Weapons hot. Her heart raced. The T-LAR were onto them. They had no time to waste. The battle to escape had just begun. "Full speed ahead," Voss ordered, her voice hardening. "We're not leaving without a fight." And as the Pride of Earth raced into the depths of space, the crew prepared for the impossible, a confrontation with the very empire that had mocked them, the empire that was about to learn that humans were no longer something to be underestimated. "You said." The Pride of Earth surged forward, its engines flaring as the ship's sleek black hull glided through the void, narrowly evading the T-LAR pursuit. The crew's focus was absolute, every eye glued to their stations as Voss barked orders, her voice cutting through the growing tension. Their mission had been a success, but the cost was clear. The T-LAR were aware of their presence now, and they would not let it go unanswered. "We've got 3 T-LAR warships closing in fast," Lieutenant Maris reported from the navigation console, her voice tense but controlled. "They're fast, heavily armed. No way we can outrun them." Voss's mind raced, calculating their options. She knew they couldn't outrun the Tular. Speed wasn't the solution here. They'd have to stand and fight, but on their terms, not the enemy's. Earth had something the Tular didn't: unpredictability. And the newly acquired intelligence from the shipyard provided her with one crucial piece of information. The Tular fleet had never encountered anything like Earth's unconventional tactics. Voss took a deep breath, her mind sharpening. "Prepare to launch the mines," she ordered. "Activate the asteroid traps." The crew's faces tightened as they went to work. The Tular might have superior firepower, but Earth's fleet had just become the most unpredictable force in the galaxy. Voss had always believed that human ingenuity and desperation could turn the tide in impossible situations, and now was the time to prove it. The Tular warships moved into position, their sleek forms closing in on the Pride of Earth, confident in their overwhelming numbers and firepower. But they weren't prepared for the sudden shift in tactics. As the first Tular ship locked onto their position, Captain Voss gave the signal. In an instant, the Pride of Earth's stealth field dropped. The ship became visible to the Tular, but not for long. The Terran fleet's secret weapon, an experimental array of deep space mines, began to deploy, scattering across the void like a constellation of deadly stars. The Tular ships began to fire, but their weapons were designed to track targets based on energy signatures, and Earth's tech was designed to confuse and evade. The mines detonated in precise, devastating bursts, creating gravitational anomalies and electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Tular's targeting systems. The first Tular warship miscalculated and veered off course, colliding with a mine and exploding in a shower of debris. "Direct hit," Maris called out, her eyes wide with disbelief. But the battle was far from over. The remaining two Tular ships retaliated, launching waves of missiles and energy blasts that screamed through space toward the Pride of Earth. Voss's hands gripped the edge of her command console as she ordered the evasive maneuvers. The ship's advanced shields flared to life, deflecting incoming fire, but Voss knew their time was limited. She needed more time, more firepower. "Activate the asteroid field," Voss commanded. "Bring the field into range." The crew worked quickly. The Pride of Earth's proximity sensors zeroed in on a dense asteroid belt nearby, a perfect hiding place for the ship to slip into. But it wasn't just a safe haven. This asteroid field was a weapon in itself. The Terran engineers had outfitted several asteroids with stealth technology, rigging them with hidden explosives and launch systems, turning the asteroids into mobile mines. With a series of calculated moves, the Pride of Earth guided several of the asteroids into the path of the remaining Tular ships. The first asteroid was deployed as a decoy, a simple rock flung toward the Tular fleet. They responded immediately, launching an entire barrage of fire, their focus entirely on the seemingly insignificant object. The second asteroid, however, had a surprise in store. As the Tular ships locked onto it, they didn't realize that it was a trap. When they were within range, the asteroid exploded, sending a series of kinetic projectiles at high velocity toward the enemy fleet. The shockwave rippled through space, and a second Tular warship was ripped apart in an instant. The remaining Tular ship, crippled but still firing, attempted to retreat, but it was too late. The Pride of Earth had gained the upper hand. And now, with only one enemy vessel left, Voss ordered the final push. "Lock on with torpedoes," she said, her voice unwavering. "End this." The last Tular ship tried to make a desperate maneuver, but it was no use. The Terran torpedoes slammed into its shields, and within seconds, the ship disintegrated in a fiery explosion, the debris scattering across the void. Voss stood silently as the battle came to an end, the hum of the Pride of Earth's systems settling into a dull pulse. They had done the impossible, turned the tables on the Tular, and left their fleet in shambles. The crew's cheers were muted, almost as if they couldn't believe what they'd just accomplished. Voss took a deep breath, looking out at the aftermath on the view screen. The shattered remains of the Tular ships drifted in the emptiness of space. "They'll come for us again," Maris said quietly, her voice laced with both awe and caution. Voss nodded, her eyes burning with the certainty of what had to come next. Let them come. The galaxy will never underestimate humanity again. As the Pride of Earth slowly turned toward the next phase of their mission, Voss knew this was just the beginning. Earth had proven itself capable of taking on the galaxy's mightiest empire, and in doing so, had begun to change the very fabric of the interstellar order. And the Tlar, for all their power, had just learned that underestimating humanity would be their greatest mistake. The silence that followed the destruction of the Tlar fleet was deafening. Captain Adrienne Voss stood at the command console of the Pride of Earth, her gaze fixed on the viewscreen, which now displayed the jagged wreckage of the Tlar ships drifting in the cold vacuum of space. The victorious cheer of her crew still echoed in the background, but Voss didn't share their sense of triumph. There was no time for celebration. The battle was over, but the war was only beginning. "Captain, we've received a transmission from High Command," Lieutenant Maris reported, breaking the tension. She looked up from her console, her face a mixture of excitement and concern. "They're requesting a debrief. Apparently, they'd been monitoring our progress." Voss nodded, trying to suppress the tension gnawing at her. She had expected this. Earth's military had just taken the boldest step in its history, and now there would be consequences. "Patch it through," she said, her voice steady despite the storm swirling in her chest. The screen shifted, revealing an official-looking figure in a crisp uniform, Admiral Karen Hale, the commander of Earth's combined fleets. Behind her, a vast array of star maps and military strategy projections flickered in and out of view. "Captain Voss," Admiral Hale's voice crackled through, her expression unreadable. "I've been briefed on your operation. The destruction of the Tlar fleet is unprecedented, but you've also triggered something we need to be prepared for." Voss stood tall, her heart thumping in her chest. "What exactly are you saying, Admiral?" "The Tlar attacked us first. We acted in self-defense." "I know," Hale replied, her tone softening slightly. "But you have to understand the implications of what you've done. The Tlar are an ancient empire, and you've just proven that humanity is a formidable threat to them. You've put us on their radar in a way that's irreversible." Voss knew exactly what Hale meant. The Tlar didn't take kindly to humiliation. A strategic miscalculation on Earth's part could invite reprisals that would be disastrous. And they weren't dealing with just any adversary. The Tlar Dominion had legions of ships, fleets capable of turning entire systems into ash with the flick of a switch. "I'm aware of the risks," Admiral Voss said, her voice firm. "But we couldn't let them get away with attacking our people. We acted when we had the chance. Now we have the intelligence we need to defend ourselves." Hale sighed, rubbing her temples. "You've made a powerful enemy, Captain. We all know that the Tlar don't tolerate loss of face, especially on this scale. They will retaliate, and they will do so with everything they have. Earth is not ready for a galactic war." Voss paused, her thoughts racing. The attack on Epsilon Theta had been the catalyst, but the destruction of the Tlar ships had ensured that humanity would never again be seen as insignificant. It wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity wasn't going to be bullied. "We don't have a choice," Admiral Voss said, her voice resolute. "The Tlar already see us as a threat. If we don't stand up now, they'll do whatever they want to us and the colonies. If we wait, we'll never have the chance to defend ourselves." Hale's eyes narrowed. "You're suggesting a full-scale retaliation." "I'm suggesting we don't wait for them to come for us," Voss replied. "If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." There was a long pause before Admiral Hale spoke again. "You've put Earth in a dangerous position, Captain. But I'm not going to pretend you didn't do what was necessary. You have my authorization to carry out your next steps. Just be prepared. This is no longer just about defending a single colony. You've sparked a fire, and now we'll need to make sure it doesn't consume everything." Voss nodded, a sense of grim determination settling in her chest. Understood, Admiral. We'll be ready. As the communication ended, the crew of the Pride of Earth turned their attention back to their mission. Voss's mind raced with the implications of what had just transpired. They had won the first battle, but now the galaxy knew Earth was no longer a quiet, insignificant speck on the map. Humanity was now an active player, whether they were ready or not. "Get me a status report on the fleet," Voss ordered. "We need to prepare for what comes next." "We've lost contact with a few of our outlying colonies, Captain," Commander Caleb Marks said, stepping forward. "It's likely the Tular are beginning to mobilize. We'll need to fortify our defenses immediately." Voss turned to face him. "Let them come. We're ready for them. We'll hit them harder than they can ever imagine." As the Pride of Earth moved into the depths of uncharted space, Voss couldn't shake the feeling that the storm had only just begun. The Tular would come. The galaxy would take notice, and humanity, whether it was prepared or not, was about to change the course of its own destiny. The firebrand had been lit, and it would burn brighter than anyone could have predicted. The Pride of Earth drifted through the cold vastness of space, its hull silent against the black, the dim glow of distant stars reflecting off its sleek surface. Captain Voss stood before the viewscreen, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The galaxy had just shifted. What had started as a mission to defend humanity's fledgling place in the stars had escalated into a full-blown galactic conflict. The Tular would not sit idly by after their defeat. Earth had become a target, and it wasn't just the Dominion's wrath that Voss had to worry about. The ripples of their assault on Tular fleets were spreading fast. Allies, if they could be called that, would soon turn their attention to Earth, and with them came the pressures of diplomacy, military strategy, and the unknown. "Captain," Commander Caleb Marks entered, his face hard. "The Council wants an immediate briefing. The message from Admiral Hale has stirred up the hornet's nest. They're preparing to send reinforcements." Voss sighed, not turning to face him immediately. She had expected this. "What do they want from us now?" she asked, her voice flat with a mix of exasperation and resolve. "They want us to stand down. They're calling for restraint, de-escalation." Mark's tone made it clear what he thought of that approach. "But I think they know what we're up against. They're just trying to buy time to figure out how to spin this diplomatically." Voss finally turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Diplomacy. You can't talk to an empire like the Tular. They'll only see that as weakness." She paused, trying to calm the fire inside her. "This isn't just a diplomatic issue anymore. We're fighting for survival." Marks nodded, though his face remained tight with concern. "I agree, Captain, but we can't go headfirst into this war without more preparation. The Tular will retaliate with everything they've got, and we're still a long way from being ready for a full-scale conflict." "We'll have to make do with what we have," Voss said, her voice hardening. "Time is not on our side. We need to strike again before they can fully regroup. The longer we let them organize, the more dangerous they'll become." The Council convened in a secure room aboard the Pride of Earth. Several senior officers and military advisors gathered around a holographic table. Voss sat at the head, flanked by Marks and Lieutenant Maris, who was busy coordinating with Earth's military command back home. "The Tular will not stop after their losses," Voss said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of uncertainty. "They'll regroup, and the next time, they'll come prepared. We have to hit them again, disrupt their ability to strike at Earth directly. We need to take out their supply lines, their reinforcements. If we don't cripple their forces before they can recover, we'll be overwhelmed." Admiral Hale's voice echoed over the secure comms. "Captain, I understand the urgency, but we cannot continue this operation without addressing the political fallout. There are other factions in the galaxy, some of whom were already uncomfortable with humanity's sudden rise. If we keep pushing the Tular, we risk triggering a larger war. Other powers will take sides. This could spiral out of control." Voss narrowed her eyes. And if we don't push back, we're handing them a free pass to invade Earth. We've already shown them what we're capable of, and now we have to finish it before they regroup. We cannot afford to be passive." Hale's voice hardened. "I don't think you understand the bigger picture, Captain. Earth is not prepared for what you're asking. You're talking about triggering a galactic-wide war. There are factions out there, our allies who we've never met, that could turn against us." Voss leaned forward, her eyes flashing with determination. "I'm not asking for a war. I'm asking for survival. If the T-Lar are coming for us, then we strike first. We hit them hard, take their fleet apart piece by piece. If we wait, they'll use every resource they have to wipe us off the map." The council fell silent, the weight of the situation hanging in the air like a thundercloud. Voss felt the responsibility on her shoulders, the pressure of guiding humanity through a storm no one could have predicted. Every decision she made from here on out would have ripple effects far beyond Earth's borders. Finally, Admiral Hale spoke again, though her tone was resigned. "You have my authorization to continue, Captain. But understand this. You are walking a razor's edge. Push too far, and we may lose more than just the war. We may lose any chance of ever truly securing Earth's place in the galaxy." Voss nodded, her resolve firm. "Understood, Admiral. But Earth has already made its choice. We will no longer be passive. We will fight. And we will win." As the meeting concluded, Voss's mind was already working through the next steps. There was no turning back now. The T-Lar had learned humanity's strength, but they had no idea what was coming next. She turned to Marx. "Prepare the fleet. We leave for T-Lar space within the hour. We hit them where it hurts." Marx gave her a sharp nod. "Aye, Captain. We're ready." The storm was about to break, and Captain Voss would be the one to unleash it. The Pride of Earth hung in the darkness, surrounded by a small but deadly fleet of Terran ships. Each vessel was a testament to humanity's unrelenting determination, forged in the fires of adversity and innovation. Despite their small numbers, the fleet was a force to be reckoned with. Advanced stealth tech, devastating weapons, and the element of surprise on their side. Captain Voss stood on the bridge, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the console in front of her, eyes narrowed as she studied the holographic map of T-Lar space. The mission was clear: hit them where they were weakest, disrupt their reinforcements, and cripple their military capabilities before they could respond. The T-Lar fleet was still reeling from their defeat, but Voss knew that would change quickly. They had to strike hard and fast. "Status report, Commander," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the coming battle. "Fleet is in position," Commander Marx responded, his voice clipped. "We're about to enter Q-Lar-controlled space. All ships are cloaked and ready for the assault." "Good," Voss said. "We can't afford to make any mistakes. This strike needs to be precise, clean. We take out their key supply depots and their forward bases. If we disrupt their logistical lines, they won't be able to bring reinforcements in time for a counterattack." Marx hesitated for a moment, then spoke again, his tone more thoughtful. "Captain, I've been reviewing their fleet deployment. There's one problem. Their core world, T-Lis, is heavily defended. Even if we take out these smaller targets, they'll regroup at their capital, and we won't have the numbers to take on their main fleet." Voss's eyes flicked to the map, then back to Marx. "Then we need to make them believe they're facing a larger threat than they are. We strike fast, we strike hard, and we leave before they know what hit them. They won't have time to regroup. We hit their supply depots and their shipyards. The more chaos we create, the more they'll waste time and resources trying to defend everything." "And if they send reinforcements to the front lines?" Marx asked, his brow furrowed. "They'll have to. And when they do, we'll already be gone, out of their reach." Voss's eyes hardened. Humanity won't be passive any longer. They'll learn that the hard way. The fleet moved into T-Lar space like a shadow in the night, their cloaks keeping them hidden from enemy sensors. Voss watched as the fleet glided through asteroid fields and nebulae, heading toward the nearest Talar supply depot. Intelligence reports had indicated that it was poorly defended, a perfect target for their first strike. "We're almost there," Lieutenant Maris said, her fingers flying over the ship's console. "We'll drop out of stealth in 5 minutes." "Prepare the drones," Voss ordered, her voice calm but urgent. "I want those supply lines cut off completely." The plan was straightforward. Launch a swarm of drones designed to disable the Talar's automated defenses, then follow up with a barrage of precision missiles to hit the depot's critical infrastructure. They would move quickly, then disappear back into the dark before the Talar could mount a defense. The countdown to strike began. The Pride of Earth's engines powered down to nearly zero, the ship drifting silently toward its target. The Talar station appeared on the view screen, a massive construction orbiting a barren planet, its enormous storage bays and fueling stations vulnerable and exposed. "Drones launched," Maris confirmed, her voice sharp with anticipation. A series of small, sleek drones shot out of the Pride of Earth's bays, each one armed with an EMP device and electronic warfare capabilities. They moved in a precise formation, silently locking onto the Talar's vulnerable systems. Voss's breath hitched as the drones reached their target. "Engage." With a series of rapid pulses, the drones unleashed their EMPs, sending waves of electromagnetic disruption through the Talar station's systems. The lights flickered as alarms blared, but it was already too late. The Talar couldn't react fast enough. The Pride of Earth's missile launchers opened fire, sending warheads streaking toward the supply depot. The first impact was devastating. The station's shields flared as they tried to repel the incoming missiles, but it wasn't enough. The depot's fuel stores ignited in a blinding explosion, and the surrounding structures crumpled under the sheer force of the blast. The Talar were scrambling to organize a defense, but their communications were down, and they were too late to stop the destruction. The fleet didn't linger. The remaining Terran ships executed their planned retreat, slipping back into the depths of space, using the surrounding asteroid fields and nebula as cover. It was textbook, fast, efficient, and deadly. Voss stood before the view screen, watching the aftermath of their strike. The explosion still lingered in the background, a bright cloud of destruction against the dark of space. "Another one down," she said quietly, but her voice held no triumph, only determination. "We've sent a message, but the Talar won't take this lying down. We need to keep the pressure on." Marks nodded, his expression grave. "And they'll respond, Captain. They won't just sit on the sidelines after losing the depot like that." "I know," Voss replied, her gaze hardening. "But the galaxy is watching, and we've just shown them that humanity will not back down. We're not going to wait for them to come for us. We're going to take this fight to them." The first strike had been a success, but the real war was only beginning, and humanity was ready. The galaxy was on edge. News of humanity's successful strike against the Talar supply depot spread like wildfire, rippling through the interstellar networks. Some saw it as a desperate, reckless act of defiance. Others, a bold statement of a species no longer willing to bow to galactic powers. But regardless of how it was perceived, the reality was clear. Humanity was now a force to be reckoned with, and the Talar would not let this humiliation pass. Voss stood on the bridge of the Pride of Earth, her gaze focused on the swirling starfields beyond. The operation had been a success, but it had also lit the fuse to a much larger conflict. The Talar were a proud empire, and they had only just begun to retaliate. "Captain, we've got multiple incoming signals," Lieutenant Maris reported, her voice tense. "It looks like Talar warships are mobilizing, likely responding to our attack. There are several high-priority targets heading straight for us." Voss nodded grimly. "What's their ETA?" 15 minutes, Maris replied. "If we don't move now, they'll have us pinned down before we can make another move." Voss turned to her crew, her mind already calculating their options. The Talar were bringing their wrath, but humanity had proven it could hit back hard. They couldn't afford to wait for the enemy to catch up. They needed to stay one step ahead. "We're going to hit them before they hit us," Voss said, her voice cold and determined. "Prepare the fleet. We'll engage in a diversionary strike to buy us time. Maris, take us to the edge of the nebula. We'll use the cover to make our move." "Aye, Captain," Maris replied, her fingers dancing over the console as the ship's engines flared to life. The Pride of Earth shot forward, the fleet following in formation. The nebula loomed ahead, a perfect hiding place. Voss had no intention of waiting around to be caught by the Tilar. She needed to keep the pressure on, to stay unpredictable, and keep them off balance. Every second counted. The Tilar warships emerged from warp just as Voss had predicted, their massive forms cutting through the void like predatory beasts. There were at least 5 of them, far superior in number to the Terran fleet, their weapon systems advanced, and their shields practically impenetrable. The first wave of Tilar ships locked onto the Pride of Earth, firing with precision, but Voss was already 3 steps ahead. The Pride of Earth swerved sharply, and the fleet scattered into the nebula's dense clouds of ionized gas and dust, using the natural cover to shield their movements. "Launch decoys," Voss ordered, her voice unshaken. "We need to buy time for the drones to reset." The decoys, holographic projections designed to mimic the ship's energy signature, launched into space, flaring brightly as they sent out false readings to the Tilar. The Tilar ships fired on the decoys, their shots missing as the real Pride of Earth, and its fleet slipped deeper into the nebula. "Now, while they're distracted," Voss said, her hand gripping the armrest of her chair as the tension mounted. The Terran fleet moved quickly and with precision, slipping between the asteroid clusters in the nebula and regrouping for a counterattack. With the Tilar fleet momentarily thrown into confusion, Voss gave the signal to strike. A barrage of missiles erupted from the Pride of Earth and the fleet, targeting the lead Tilar ship. The first salvo slammed into the Tilar vessel, its shields flaring to life before shattering under the intensity of the strike. The ship staggered, its engine sputtering as the hull began to rupture. "Direct hit," Commander Marks called out, his eyes wide with excitement. "The lead ship is disabled. We've got them on the run." But the Tilar weren't done. They retaliated immediately, launching their own missiles, which streaked toward the Terran ships in a devastating wave. "Evasive maneuvers," Voss shouted. "Keep moving. We can't let them pin us down." The fleet scattered once again, weaving through the nebula's dense gas clouds and asteroid fields, dodging the Tilar's missiles. The Pride of Earth dipped and soared, narrowly avoiding an explosion that could have torn the ship in half. Voss's knuckles turned white as she gripped the console, guiding her ship through the chaos. She knew they couldn't keep this up forever, but for now, they had the advantage. As the battle raged, Voss could sense the turning tide. The Tilar were beginning to regroup, bringing their forces back into alignment. The distraction was almost over. They had done damage, but now it was time for their fleet to retreat before the Tilar could fully retaliate. "We've done enough," Voss said, her voice low but firm. "Pull back. We're done here." The fleet began to disengage, retreating toward the outer edges of the nebula, and then jumping into hyperspace. The Tilar had been forced to fight on humanity's terms, and though the battle was not over, Earth had once again proven its resilience. As the fleet vanished into the stars, Voss allowed herself a moment of relief. The battle had been fierce, and their victory was not without its cost. But the message was clear: humanity would not back down. They had started a fire in the galaxy, and the Tilar were just beginning to feel the heat. In the cold of space, a new war had truly begun.